but then try to think the way how these catches were done. So if you look at the pictures that I show there, shows practice of forced labor, practice of human trafficking, practice of child labor, crew from Indonesia at Taiwanese fishing vessels, smuggling of lobster seeds. People, seamen or our fishers are beaten to death. And then let us think, do we still have the appetite to eat our seafood dish? If not, then let us think together how to stop illegal fishing activities. Because it is not merely just illegal fishing activities, but it also brings in other associated crimes that maybe have never been thought of. Okay? Sexual abuses, people working in very bad conditions without salaries being paid for years. Okay? We have a case in Ambon, in Indonesia, called, very well known by Benjina case. And from this case, we found out thousands of people working in the conditions that I was explaining. So then, from that experience, Indonesia becomes, more, I would say, brutal, not really brutal, but more courageous in explaining. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, in fighting the issue of IUU fishing. And then the other issue is marine plastic debris flowed to Indonesia through ocean conveyor belts. So this is also an issue. I think some countries here, some friendly countries, Indonesia is very proud. It's very proud, but this time I will say it's a negative pride actually. Proud to be the second polluters of the world for marine plastic debris after China. So China, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, so Philippines, 5 countries. So after we found out that we were also included in the 5 countries, actually we tried to make an assessment trying to counter the finding of Jane Jambek, who made the conclusion. But at the end of the day, we found out that her conclusion was correct. So nothing to reject, we have to work. So then Indonesia started to commit, and Indonesia is now committing $1.5 billion to fight marine plastic debris. And if some of you have visited Indonesia before, if you see the canals before were so dirty, and if you have seen some rivers very dirty, I hope that you will see some changes there. Okay, so these are some slides that I show you regarding the plastic debris. The other issue is, but we found out some solutions. So use of plastic debris as additive materials for road construction. And thanks for India, we collaborated with the professor from India, and then finally we can convince our Ministry of Public Works to mix plastic debris, the plastic as additives for material for road construction. And plastic debris for clothing materials, cooperation between Aqua Danone and H&M. Plastic debris for computer casing, Dell computers, introduction of biodegradable plastic materials. So these are new, some solutions that we are finding. And the following one is the oil spill originated from ships and tankers. For the spills from tankers, for ships, MARPOL conventions are there, we can work on that. But unfortunately, when we talk about spills originated from fixed platforms, there is none. There is no international regulation that talks about oil pollution originated from fixed platforms. So when Indonesia realized, Indonesia had a case in 2009, we had a case of oil spill. We tried to bring this case through IMO. We worked together with Denmark, But at the end of the day, IMO said, we're sorry, Indonesia, we're sorry, Denmark, but oil spills from fixed platforms is not does not fall into our competence. And then, and these are some pictures of oil spills, very nice pictures, okay, which I think you don't like to see them. Okay? And farmers who have the impact of these oil spills doesn't know what to do because regulations are not there. And this poor farmer has to bring his case to Australian court, not Indonesian court, to Australian court. Well, and then of course we have the issue of earthquake and tsunami, and the issue of destruction of coral reefs. Same thing, we have one example of this very big passenger ship dumped at our coral, destructed it, and we were not very fast to capture the captain. He went away, and we couldn't do anything. We tried to bring the case to the court, but things are still progressing. So, Excellency, this is my presentations, and of course, the issues that I will propose for cooperation is like how to fight IUU fishing, how to combat marine plastic debris, and the last one also, what Madam DG was telling about, is about the floating armories. I remember because I was at the IMO meeting, Madam, I was sitting beside India. India and Indonesia are closed. And because I didn't know about the concept, so when India raised the issue, I said, Indonesia rejects. Because I didn't know. Sorry, Madam, sorry, I'm sorry. Indonesia rejects. Because Indonesia thinks that if the floating armories are there with the heavy armories, it can become a target of terrorists. And if that happens, who can control them? So based on this, Indonesia rejected that. But then in June when India presented the concept again, Indonesia was a little bit soft. Indonesia will try to consider it, so no, we try to be soft. And Madam, I think for the future we can talk about the issue. We can maybe have some more workshops on the issue, and then we will see how Indonesian position is. Thank you very much, Excellency.
Thank you very much, Diaz. I hope next time you say Indonesia also agrees. Well, you made several concrete points, very useful suggestions. Slavery at sea, I saw that, with also your experience of dealing with plastic debris and the commitment of 1.5 billion is something I think we all need to really, take into account and also learn about that. One very encouraging feature is that your president and your minister and our Prime Minister have very similar, identical views about maritime security, maritime safety, and so on. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Captain Sarabjit Parmar. He is not only a naval officer, but he is an academic, and currently with the National Maritime Foundation. Over to you.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or rather evening. Commodore Nishant Kumar called maritime security glamorous. There's a lot of grunt work required to be glamorous. Ask any model and he or she will tell you that it's a tough job getting ready for it for a 5-minute catwalk. All right. Before I start off, I'll just start off with a caveat that these views are mine and in no way do they reflect the policies of the Government of India or the Indian Navy or my National Maritime Foundation. Having said that, let me go ahead on to a little... do I have the right button first? Which is the button? Okay, I got it. Thank you. I got it. Thank you. All right. Now, if these are the 17 goals or sustainable development goals on which Blue Economy is going to focus, it's important to understand that all these goals are in some way connected to the oceans. And here I will differ with Dr. Mohanty, that when you look at the endeavors to achieve these goals, whether they are employment, use of the ocean resources, worry about pollution, or even using the ocean medium to convey imports and exports that run industry and job employments in hinterland, we need to look at it a little differently. Therefore, all 17 goals are important in order to achieve a blue economy. And here I will take an assumption, which I take as a fact and truth, that every coastal nation's economy is therefore a blue economy. It's not part of it, it's all-encompassing. And every landlocked nation has a connect to the oceans. We must remember that even UNCLOS gives landlocked nations the right to use the oceans. And therefore, I stand by my statement here that every coastal nation's economy is a blue economy. We can discuss it a little later on during question-answer session. And therefore, as far as India and ASEAN is concerned, there is a maritime dependency. I want you to take a good look at this map. See the maritime expanse. And if I was to look only at the Bay of Bengal, the Straits of Malacca, Singapore, Lombok, Sunda, and the South China Sea, this is the heart of the Indo-Pacific. Anything that transits from west to east or east to west has to transit this ocean. And therefore, when you look at ASEAN as the centrality of Indo-Pacific, this maritime region is the heart of Indo-Pacific. And here I will make a statement, and I will say that cooperation thrives on connectivity. And in return, connectivity gains strength due to the cooperation. So why do I say this? ASEAN is India's fourth largest trading partner. There are some figures I'll just flash as far as India-ASEAN trade is concerned. 65 to 71 to above 80 in this current financial year. Figures are low, but what is important to see is the jump in around 10%, 8 to 10% increase annually, and this is only set to grow. With a combined GDP of around 5.1 trillion USD, we stand as a combined third largest economy of the world. Soft power, 1.85 billion people combined. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an emerging powerhouse, and we need to extract the maximum advantage we can from this on the global stage. Trade is predominantly via the maritime expanse I have just mentioned, and therefore to float and move the blue economy, we need to address certain maritime threats and challenges. So if we are to maximize national prosperity via the blue economy, then we need to ensure maritime safety and security. I'm fortunate Commodore Nishant Kumar has covered safety. I totally agree with him. You cannot see them through the same prism. You need to isolate and look at them separately. Safety is safety, security is security. Both are equally glamorous and both are equally tiring also. So therefore, I will look at two non-traditional threats, essentially piracy and humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, essentially because both of these threats do not respect or recognize any national boundaries. There are certain piratical complexities. It's not the Johnny Depp we see on the screen. There is a harder part of piracy that needs to emerge. And therefore, if we are in agreement that it is of a unique nature, that it has survived centuries, and I take you back to the Roman Emperor Cicero when he said that they are the enemies, common enemies of mankind that still exist today. So what is the complexity that involves anti-piracy runs? First of all, let's agree that it is an international crime. There is a certain universal jurisdiction, both advantages to the pirates and a little disadvantages to the nations who want to combat it. Essentially, it is always attributable to one individual, that is the pirate concerned. It does not form part of any international or non-international conflict. Therefore, what rules of engagement, what laws of armed conflict will you employ, and what laws of, say, law enforcement will you employ, since most of the acts are in areas beyond any national jurisdiction. And above all, there is no supportive organizational policy. When you look at an anti-piracy policy, these are the complexities that confuse the policymaker as to how do you address it. And when you play it on an international stage, say of the Gulf of Aden, or even for that matter, before piracy of Somalia, let's not forget that the Malacca Straits and the South China Sea was the hotbed of piracy before it got overtaken by the international response to piracy of the Gulf of Aden. there are a lot of things that lessons we've learned from the piracy over a period of time, and therefore I need to flag a few issues out here, is that there are legal challenges, and that is what we need to understand and address. There are three aspects that drive the legal factor. First and foremost is the international accepted definition of piracy, and here I will assume that somewhere along the line we would have read the definition of piracy as per UNCLOS Article 101. Therefore, it is essential to understand that it is restricted to the high seas, it is to private ends. I go back to the individual as a person I mentioned to, and there is the two-ship dilemma. There is a ship that who is being pirated, and there is a ship that is carrying the pirates. If you have only one ship, it does not cover the definition of piracy. And I am reminded of a case in the United States where the judge threw the case of piracy out, saying that I'm sorry, but the prosecution could not prove that the piracy was as per any accepted international definition. It's a dilemma we face today. Second is national laws and trans-border legal complexities governing prosecution of pirates. And third is the capacity of prisons and imprisonment costs. In the initial 4 years of prosecution, out of the 1,200 cases ever tried, 300 were financed by UNODC for a cost of $30 million US. That's 10 million per case. And in 2010, as per a survey carried out,